Hey guys, welcome back. So today's video is all about my favorite book bows, aka heroes in books that I absolutely adore. Now, needless to say, I have read a lot of books, but there've only actually been a handful of book bows or heroes or whatever you want to call them that have stood out to me well after I have finished reading the book. And I wanted to share with you guys who those are so that if you haven't read these books or you're not familiar with the characters, maybe you'll be tempted to pick up the book and see for yourself why I absolutely adore them. Now, let me know in the comments below if you agree with my list or your own particular list about not even just your favorite book bows, but just your favorite characters in books altogether. Now, before we dive in, I will say this list isn't in any kind of particular order. It was just me writing down from memory all of my faves, so keep that in mind as I'm going through it. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Starting off this list, we have Rourke from J.D. Robbs' In Death series. Now, if you're familiar with the series, enough said. You already could probably agree with me that Rourke is the absolute best, but if you're not familiar with the series, it is a futuristic crime fiction series, like I said, by J.D. Robb, that follows a female detective named Eve as she solves crimes in every single book. And Rourke is her significant other. We actually meet him from the very first book, and from the jump, you already know that he is a force to be reckoned with. He is this bajillionaire businessman, and he makes his feelings for Eve apparent from the jump, which is actually one of the reasons why I love him so much, is that he is so open and honest with his feelings. I've read a lot of romance books where part of the conflict is the fact that the characters can't admit their feelings for each other, and Rourke is the absolute opposite, which is one of the reasons why he's the best. Another reason, which I admit is shallow, is his sexy brogue Scottish accent. I listened to the audiobook of this and the narrator does an excellent job portraying that, and there's something about a guy with an accent or accents in general that really get to me. Let me know in the comments if it's just me, if you agree, but yeah, I love his accent. That is one of the more superficial reasons why I absolutely adore him. Another reason why I adore him, if I can quote the ever so wise Spice Girls, if you want to be my lover, you gotta get with my friends, aka how he treats Eve's friends. Now, in the book, there is a character named Mavis who is Eve's quirky friend and she ends up getting her own subplot in which she gets into a little bit of trouble, and Rourke is right there along her side, helping her, doing whatever he can, which I find so sweet and so endearing, because let's be honest, we want our significant others to love and care for our friends and family as much as we do, and he does just that, which is yet another reason why he has a spot on this list. Now, I mentioned earlier on that he's this bajillionaire businessman, and yes, he has a lot of money, but more so than that, it's what comes from having a lot of money, which is to say the influence and the confidence, and he has both of those in spades. I love his confidence. He never wavers in terms of how he trusts Eve or their feelings for one another, and also his influence, because multiple times she has had to rely on him and his resources to help solve a case, and he always freely gives her access to that, which is something that is very sweet to see in somebody, especially, let's be honest, if they're in such a high tax bracket. He freely gives without wanting anything in return, and so that is yet another reason why my boy Rourke is on this list. Next up, we have Bones from Janine Frost's Night Hunter series. We are first introduced to Bones from the very first book, and if you aren't familiar with the book, it is a paranormal series about a vampire hunter named Kat teaming up with a vampire named Bones, and the two of them essentially fight things that go bump in the night, as well as other vampires. Now, when you first read this book, Bones is kind of an asshole, I'll admit, but an asshole in a good kind of way, because you quickly see that he is somebody that has depth, and the fact that he is an asshole is more so his way of showing his unspoken affection toward Kat. And one of the things that I absolutely adore is their verbal sparring, because Kat is sarcastic, she can be a smartass, and Bone holds his own when it comes to verbal sparring and the tit for tat, which is so enjoyable to see. Now, another reason why I love him, which I just realized this, like I said, this list isn't in any kind of particular order, but I want to mention his accent. I told you I have a thing for accents, but he has a Cockney accent, which the audiobook narrator does an excellent job portraying. And why I love his accent is because it's different from your typical British accents that you might be more familiar with in like Hollywood movies or on TV screens. So like, it's not the Pierce Brosnan kind of accent, but it's one that suits his personality and his character, which is something that is so enjoyable to listen to as the series goes on. And it's just fun all around. And more so than that, I love his undying love for her. Now, I guess that's a bit on the nose because he is an immortal vampire. But yes, he is very ride or die for Kat. There have been multiple instances where he has freely put himself in the line of fire and he is willing to risk everything and his life and more to keep her safe, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely adore him so much, because even though he is very playful and he is a very smart alecky kind of character, at the end of the day, he will do absolutely anything to keep her protective because he loves her so much, and that really comes across in the series. Okay, so next up we have Rhys from Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorn and Roses series. We are also introduced to him in the very first book, but we really get him in book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury, which if you guys have seen any of my videos from the past couple of months, you'll know was just one of my absolute favorite books ever. But yeah, so if for some reason you're not familiar, a quick rundown: it is a young adult fantasy series set in a fairy world in which a human girl teams up with different fairy to fight other groups of fairy. I'm keeping that vague on purpose because you could easily see like a million other videos going into depth about what the series is about. But back to Rhys. So Rhys is our secondary love interest. Like I said, we see more of him in book 2. And when you're first introduced to him, he is painted as a bad guy, very mysterious, and you just don't understand why he is just getting in the character's way. But soon after, you see and you understand his entire motivation. And once you see why he has put on such a hard mask, it makes you melt and just understand his character so much. There is so much depth to him, which is one of the reasons why I love him so much, because he is willing to be the bad guy or be portrayed as the bad guy if it will protect or accomplish the bigger mission, which is exactly what it ends up doing. And to be that selfless is one of the reasons why he has a spot on this list, because more so than obviously loving our heroine, he just doesn't care what people think about him. And like I said, he does whatever he needs to do to hold his own and keep his people protected, which I think is a very admirable and very mature thing to do. Next up, we have Simon from Alice Clayton's Wallbanger series. Now, I added Simon to this list for 2 reasons. The first reason is a little superficial in the fact that it's all about his job. He is a Nat Geo photographer, and thus his job takes him to a lot of really cool places, and I gotta be honest, it seems like something that would be fun to do, to tag along with if you were the girlfriend or the significant other. In fact, I believe he actually does do that at the end of the first book, and so that paints a really fun picture in terms of like the imagery and all of that. Now, the second reason that I added him to this list is because of just the witty banter. Guys, I am a sucker for excellent banter between our characters, and these two have chemistry in spades. Like I mentioned, it is an enemies to lover, and so I feel like when it comes to enemies to lovers plots, the banter is a little bit stronger, I think, just because you have that vehemence there and the passion is a little heavier, but that's exactly what we get in this. He is matching our character wit for wit in terms of the witty repartee and the fact that they are neighbors and they like bang on each other's walls. It's just so fun to watch, and so that's one of the reasons also why I made sure to add Simon to this list. Next up, we have Ian from Not So Nice Guy by R.S. Gray. This is another contemporary romance, but it's actually friends to lovers, and I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here because I know I mentioned previously that enemies to lovers seem to have better chemistry, but R.S. Gray and Ian prove me 100% wrong, because Ian is just, he's that best friend turn boyfriend turn husband that you just want to have. The story starts out with him and our heroine just playing with each other, buddy, because they're best friends. They've been best friends for a long time, but Ian has always secretly been in love with her, and the inside jokes shared between the two of them is just so sweet to watch. And the main reason why I put Ian on this list is because he seems so trustworthy and somebody you can just 100% be yourself around. And I mean, that's something that we all want or should have in best friends, and more so in our significant other. And Ian portrays just that. Our heroine can be silly, goofy, ugly, cry, whatever in front of him, and he still adores her for her, which I absolutely adore, because, you know, when you're first meeting and you're dating someone, you always want to put your best foot forward. But when you're friends with someone, you can just put your hair down and just 100% what you see is what you get, and they still want to be with you. I mean, that really says a lot about that person, and Ian conveys that so well. And yeah, it's just, he's so fun. Also, the two of them have a lot of inside jokes, which is always funny to watch. And at the end of the day, when the two of them finally do admit their feelings and get together, it's almost like nothing has changed, but everything has changed. And so I really enjoyed watching that unfold, and another reason why he is on this list. Okay, so last up we have Nick, aka Mr. O, from Lauren Blakely's Big Rock series. Now, this is another contemporary romance, and it stars Nick, obviously, who is a cartoonist who falls in love with his best friend's sister. I guess you can kind of consider this another friends to lovers, but there are a few more other plot details and intricacies sprinkled in that makes this one different and definitely interesting to watch unfold. One of the biggest things is the fact that this story is told 100% through Nick's point of view, which is something that I personally never have come across. I've used to seeing books written in the female point of view only, or both dueling male and female point of view, but never the man only. But anyway, I digress. One of the reasons why I absolutely adored Nick is because of his personality. Now, obviously, the book is called Mr. O, so you can kind of guess what that is inferring. But more so than that, Nick is very down to earth, much like Ian, but it's constantly driven home that he is very sexy, he is very confident with women and in bed and all of that. But when it comes to pursuing his best friend's sister, or the heroine in this case, he's nothing but 100% himself, which I really like, because even though he is touted as being this very sexy man, he's still very humble and down to earth, which is something that I could definitely get on board with. There's nothing worse than obviously having a guy who knows he's the shit and it's just kind of a turn off. But anyway, Nick's totally not like that whatsoever. And it's just really fun to watch them interact with each other. So if you haven't read the book, definitely give it a try, because he's definitely on this list for a reason. I don't want to give too much away because there are some plot details that could possibly be spoilers, but check it out for yourself. Okay, so those were a list of my favorite book bows. Like I said earlier, please let me know in the comments if you agree with this list or who makes it onto your own personal list. I'm always interested to see how people rank books and characters that they have read before. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you did, and if you want to see more content like it. Happy reading. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!